Well, well done to everyone. Well done to South Tyneside for turning out for our Save South Tyneside Hospital campaign, march and rally. And it's a wonderful turnout from all of you, especially with considering the weather. And we've got a lineup of 7 speakers. Just to say that today marks almost a year since we held the first demonstration in South Tyneside, in South Shields here, to save our hospital. And at that time we had 10,000 signatures in Sunderland. And I'm glad to say there were a number of our activists in the campaign from Sunderland here today and carried the banner, so congratulations to them. And that work is steadily building in Sunderland, because this is going to hit Sunderland big time if they go ahead with these closures. So let's tell them they haven't seen anything yet, and we haven't finished yet. This is just a beginning. We're only halfway through the consultation, but I'll let others speak, because this is a campaign which has many people involved, and the 7 speakers all represent people who've been in the forefront of our campaign. And our first speaker at our public meeting in Jarrow, she spoke at our public meeting in Jarrow, and she pointed out that healthcare is a right and not a privilege. This is what we're fighting for. A victory for us will be for victory for everyone in the northern region, she said. It is, of course, Gemma Taylor, Save South Tyneside Hospital campaign coordinator and coordinator of South Tyneside PSA. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I would like to give a warm welcome to you all from Save South Tyneside Hospital campaign. We have now reached the end of the first consultation after months of fighting to save our vital consultant-led children's A&E, consultant-led maternity, special care baby unit and hospital stroke services. Firstly, I would like to thank all of those in South Tyneside Hospital campaign, including the MPs, who have made such an important contribution to this fight. Since we formed last year, this is now a truly broad-based campaign with people and staff from all levels that have contributed to the fight to save our hospital. It is you that have been involved that have guided this campaign. Both our chair and I have made our mission to make sure that large planning meetings attended by 30 to 40 people every 2 weeks is where the agenda is set, and the decisions taken doing our best to unite people from all walks of life and of differing views and perspectives to make their main priority the fight to save our hospital services. This is something you, as a campaign, have taken to heart, and this is the secret of our success so far. During the period, we encourage people to raise their concerns about the downgrading of their health services in the consultation meetings organised by the Clinical Commission and Group. We have organised 2 massive Save South Tyneside Hospital campaign public meetings in South Shields and Jarrow, chaired by our MPs, and we have started to organise effectively in Sunderland. In this way, we have started to take the discussion to the fight for the right to our local health services right into the heart of the communities and into our hospital with our trade union colleagues there. This week we produced a 15-page briefing and response, which we finalised after so much involvement from you all, but particularly the clinical staff who were ignored and cut out of the review and options. What we have is a document highlighting the just stand of the campaign, which has informed and helped others to see the wood for the trees in a consultation which has been worse than Theresa May's strong and stable election campaign. Now nearly everyone is recognising that most of these options will make our NHS in South Tyneside and Sunderland less safe and less sustainable. And we've drawn this line in the sand that we will never accept such options that have been decided on behind closed doors without clinical involvement and without our involvement and without the investment necessary to meet all the health needs. The downgrading of these services, the loss of the 24/7 children's A&E, the loss of the consultant-led maternity, the loss of the special care baby unit and all the stroke services will have a massive impact of the availability of quality, accessible services in South Tyneside and cause a massive crisis in reduction of the quality of services in Sunderland. Yet it will not produce any significant financial savings, and the financial deficits that the government has created will get far worse even more quickly. They say they will save at the most 2 million, yet they want to cut the budget of both hospitals by 35 million this year alone. How will Sunderland cope? How will South Tyneside cope? In other words, the value of our health service contribute to the local population and its economy far outstrips the amount of funding that will be saved by closing them. As was said by one of the councillors, the NHS needs to deliver the right outcomes for local people. The right outcomes can only be delivered by listening to our staff and by listening to the people of South Tyneside and Sunderland. What happens now is what we understand they will take a final decision on these options in early 2018, whilst we also understand that they intend to launch a new consultation on the review of all other acute services, including critical care and our A&E in February of 2018. As Roger said, we haven't finalised yet. We keep fighting for our paediatric services, maternity services, special care baby unit and stroke services. There are many things to do and also need to get ready to take on what they bring on next. Don't forget, this is our hospital, our workplace and our NHS. We can and we will win. Join us to save South Tyneside Hospital.
Thanks, Gemma. Our second speaker said at the same meeting, she said that we've been fighting on the inside, supporting the campaign within as Unison members. Our Unison branch and our health service are run by staff in the hospital. The staff are dedicated. They are absolutely 100% behind the services provided at South Tyneside Hospital. It's none of them. We'll give a warm welcome to Marion Langley, Unison Branch Secretary at the hospital.
I'm only little, with a big gob. Can I just say thank you so much for turning out today. This is absolutely brilliant. And I'm going to say a personal thank you to all of the staff who have worked with us with this campaign inside the hospital under real pressure. Thank you. Can I also say, when we said staff hadn't been involved, we know that managers and senior clinicians round the table actually sat down and put those plans together. The nurses, the senior clinician teams that actually you go to, that you go and speak to on a regular basis, had no indication, no development of those plans. And that's what we were arguing about. That's the fight we've had to have. I'm very pleased to say management have listened, and what we want them to do is make sure that the implementation of whatever option comes forward, that our staff on the ground, who are the people that you go to, have the implementation details and give some credence to the plans that need to go forward. I would also like to say a big thank you to everyone who's participated in the consultations. They haven't been very easy. Staff were also criticised for actually taking part in some of those consultations. The staff, I think what the consultation proved was that we don't just work for South Tyneside, we live for South Tyneside, we live in South Tyneside, and we want South Tyneside Hospital to remain for South Tyneside people. If you look at how they've developed the plans, let me ask you this. If you're running into A&E with a baby in your arms, who are you going to run to? Are you going to run to the manager with a suit on? Or are you going to run to the nurse with a uniform? I know who I'm going to. I would also like to say there are options being put forward from all of the staff. Maternity, from stroke, from paediatrics, our gynae, all of them, they've all had some sort of input. They want those plans to be developed with the workforce and not everyone else. But can I also say, as much as we've had a battle over the last few months, it isn't over. We've got a massive hurdle ahead. The plans for 3 phases going forward was what we were supposed to be doing. Management have announced that they are not going to have a 3rd phase. All of what was going in the 3rd phase will now come into the 2nd phase. And that is the 2nd phase, that's the next hurdle, that's the next battle we're going to have. And I think the staff of South Tyneside in the 1st phase have shown the way. I would like to also say those staff who are not yet affected, they are the ones that need to learn from what we've done, pick up the gauntlet now, and I'm sure the colleagues who have been fighting for this 1st phase going forward will help, encourage, support anyone who has to go through this battle now. I've also got to mention Sunderland. As far as I'm concerned, we are living in a situation where the fight seems quite prominent within South Tyneside. Unfortunately, Sunderland needs to come on board a little quicker because, let's face it, if it's going to take a year to get some of these plans up and running, 2 years to get some of these plans up and running, I don't know about you, but it just seems yesterday I put my Christmas tree away. I'm getting it out a couple of weeks' time. So these years roll on. We need to be able to fight both sides of this argument. The pressure Sunderland will have will be immense. If you think of the amount of children that have gone through our emergency PEDS A&E, if they themselves have to go through to Sunderland, then I'm sorry, but Sunderland are going to have to queue like the rest of us. And that's what we're seeing. I've got to also say, what worries me is the health of our staff. If you think that if these proposals go forward and a door has to be shut at 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, any time that that door shuts, there will be staff on the other side of that door, still working to finish off their jobs, to make sure that their patients are cared for and transferred to Sunderland. What's it going to be like for those staff who are listening to the mother knocking on the door, asking to come in, and they have to say, sorry, you have to go to an adult A&E next door? Or the maternity, when a mother who's been deemed to have a very ordinary, I don't think anybody's birth's ordinary nowadays, but a natural birth as far as they're concerned, very low risk, and then it becomes a problem and they need to phone an ambulance, only to be told there's an emergency somewhere else, and that ambulance isn't on the way just yet, or they give an average of when it'll be there. As far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't like to have to pick the phone up to anybody and get an ambulance nowadays. They're not meeting the targets. As far as we're concerned, they are looking at the restructure of that A&E systems, and that may not help in our circumstances. The transport surveys that were done, the inch thick, if anybody was at the transport event, an inch thick document that told us absolutely nothing, and I don't know where he is, but wherever Jim is, he had an A4 sheet of paper, and give them more detail in that A4 piece of paper than a company that must have cost them thousands to produce. There he is. So from our point of view, we've got a long way to go. I want the support of the staff within the workplace, but they're encouraged, really encouraged, by the support that the public are giving them. We just need more. We've got 150,000 people in South Tyneside. This is a fraction of the people that we have spoken to. So as far as I'm concerned, every single one of you here have got a relative, a friend, somebody, Facebook, anywhere. Tell them there are plans to change services within South Tyneside, and you must use your voice. Again, a personal thank you to all of the clinicians, all of the nursing staff who we've worked with within the hospital, and they are there protecting your services for the future for yourselves. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Marion. Our next speaker just recently gave evidence at the Joint Health and Social Scrutiny and Overseeing Committee, and she said at that committee the consultation predicated on the fact that the CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group, are saying that it's been done in consultation with the consultants, when I have a wealth of information from consultants that is not correct. She's has been part of this campaign since it started. It's Emma Lewell-Buck for South Shields. Sorry, MP for South Shields.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for turning up to today's march and rally. And thank you to the Save the South Tyneside Hospital campaign for all of their sterling work. Last year, I stood on this very spot and told you I was concerned about the future of our hospital. I said that our hospital was at risk of losing vital services. Yet at that time, I and others were accused of scaremongering. Now, the consultation is about to close, and I can say without any pleasure that we were right. By now, most of you will know that the so-called path to excellence as it stands will result in our hospital losing a number of vital services. Stroke services, gone. Special care baby unit, gone. Consultant-led maternity services, gone. Overnight gynecology, gone. 24-hour paediatrics cut down to 12 hours. I warned that the alliance between South Tyneside Hospital and Sunderland Hospitals would become a merger. But in reality, we now know that wasn't true, because it's actually a massive takeover. And all of this for an estimated saving of £2 million that will save people in South Tyneside who aren't well enough to get the 2 buses to Sunderland Hospital, having to pay around £40 for a return journey for a taxi. Now, the CCG tell us that 96% of our residents live within 30 minutes of Sunderland Hospital. I can only conclude that they employed Lewis Hamilton to do those time checks. Because it's very clear that there is nothing safe and nothing sustainable about these plans. Now, many of you know that I have repeatedly expressed my concerns regarding due process and transparency. There's something very murky going on when the Clinical Commissioning Group are saying that staff in our hospital have been involved in formulating these proposals before you, yet multitudes of our hard-working staff are coming to me, clinicians, and saying that they have been actively blocked out of this process from day one. I was pleased that at Labour Party's conference we reaffirmed our opposition to the sustainability and transformation plans that are driving these cuts. I'm proud that with a Labour government we would immediately halt these cuts to our NHS. And I am also delighted that John McDonnell and Jeremy Corbyn have signed the petition to save our hospital. Many of you will know that I've repeatedly asked the Council to refer the consultation to the Secretary of State for Health. To mine and many of my constituents' dismay, this has been denied. But I do have faith that our South Tyneside councillors will do the right thing, and if they continue to refuse to refer to the Secretary of State to halt this process, I hope they will employ one of the many options that councils up and down the country are, such as refusal to sign the plans overall or seeking judicial review. It is in the council's gift to do this. Because friends, right now, with a weakened government, a diminished Prime Minister, we are going to be able to win this fight if enough people keep coming out in opposition. And remember, this is only phase one of a massive programme of change for our hospital. More is to come, including our accident and emergency services. The Tories want to shut our NHS down for once and for all. These plans always have been predicated on cuts, and it is happening right across England. I vowed last year that I would continue the fight to save our hospital. All of us owe it to continue that fight. For the people who work in our NHS and for the people of South Tyneside now and future generations, let's never give up this fight. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Emma. Yes, you're involved all of the time. Our next speaker also addressed the Joint Health Scrutiny Committee alongside Emma Lewell-Buck, and he told the CCG, the Clinical Commissioning Group, looking at David Hambleton in the face, he said, as far as calling it the path to excellence, it should be called the road to inferiority. How can you say it's a pathway to excellence when the services are being downgraded? He's also been involved in the campaign since the start. It's Stephen Hepburn, MP for Jarrow and Hepburn.
Well, thanks Roger, and could I thank you and Gemma for all the work you've done in bringing about this campaign and working so hard to keep it going and keeping it live. It's a boost of adrenaline today to come along and see so many people willing to come out in South Tyneside to defend the services that are theirs. It's great to see everybody, and we'll carry on this fight no matter what. It's next year when we actually commemorate the 70th anniversary of the NHS, the foundation, the creation of the NHS, which the Labour Party founded on the dream that a dustbin man would get the same treatment as a duke, but pay no more than the duke for that service. And we want to see the service enhanced. But when the Tories turn round to us in Parliament and say that the cuts have got to be made in the likes of South Tyneside and Sunderland, they say we can't afford it, we don't have a magic money tree. We tell them where to get the money. Corbyn tells them, MacDonald tells them, and what we tell them, get them from the same magic money tree that you give the top 1% richest people in the country that tax cuts and made them billions. Get it from the same magic money tree where the Tories got the billions to give to the top 5% companies in the country, the richest countries and some of the richest companies in the world, and give them billions. Get it from the magic money tree where the Tories are getting billions in the cuts to the top 2% wealthiest estates in the country through cuts in inheritance tax. And yes, get it from the magic money tree when you give the DUP a bung to save your necks to be able to further your plans to privatise the National Health Service. Because the Tories hate the National Health Service because it shows socialism works and they don't like it. That's why they want rid of it, and that's why we're going to fight for it. Keep up the fight. We are the many, they are the few. It's our NHS. Tell them to keep their grubby hands off it.
Thanks, Stephen. That's a very rousing speech. Our next speaker, at our meeting in Jarrow, he said it's a long way from the west end of Hepburn to Sunderland Royal. They're dismissing the people of Hepburn completely because they want them to disappear to Gateshead and Newcastle. It's our very own councillor who's been with us along with other councillors since the days of the Jarrow Walk-in Centre. It's John McCabe, Council Political Officer.
Thanks, Roger. Thanks very much to everybody who came here today. I'm specifically here not to support the NHS. I don't want to support the NHS. I want to fight for it. So I'm a bit warm. I could do with taking my coat off. Okay. We're here to fight for the NHS because I'm looking at the young children and the young people here in the audience. In my lifetime, which is not very long, I have had a hospital close in Hepburn, Palmer's Hospital in Jarrow close. We've seen the loss of Ingham Infirmary. We now have one hospital. The way that things are developing, because of underfunding in the NHS over many years by all governments, no thought process has been there to establish the NHS permanently. It can be put on a business footing, but I'll come to that in a moment. The young people deserve a local hospital because Labour policy is local services as local as possible. And Sunderland is a canny long way from Hepburn, Luke's Lane, Jarrow, Primrose and new people in South Shields. A long, long way, especially when you don't have the money. I sometimes think that the people in power are so laid back in their own rich world where they don't have to think about where the next penny comes from. They forget that people out here are struggling. They forget it. So let's remind them of it. And how can we remind them? How we're going to fight back. Now I'm just going to give a couple of examples about things that where it's impossible and things could never develop the way they have, but they have. You are small, but together unity is strength and we'll win. A little lawyer in India set up a campaign to stop the richest empire in the world to get his own country free. A little fella called Gandhi. And when he started off, he was told he was an idiot, he was a loony. And yet look, India got its independence. The Berlin Wall. Who thought that would come down? Who brought it down? It wasn't politicians, councillors and MPs. It was the people brought the wall down. Lech Walesa in Gdansk in Poland, in a shipyard, started a small campaign off called Solidarność. And Poland's free now. So let me tell you, you are disciples. Everyone here is a disciple, and take this message back to the people in the power. You don't want your hospital services lost. You're not going to have your services lost. And if you do, there'll be repercussions, because the people have the power. It's called the ballot box. We can sustain the NHS. John MacDonald, the Sheriff Chancellor, was fortunate enough to speak to him last night. Just little ideas which hopefully are going to go forward. One of the biggest expenses for the NHS is drugs. Pay an absolute fortune after staff charges and wages. Next biggest cost is drugs. Why don't we have a national drugs company instead of SmithKline Beecham? Go to Asda and you can get paracetamol for 50 pence. Just along the counter is SmithKline Beecham for 2.50. There's billions of pounds being wasted on buying drugs. Start our own national drugs company. And I'm not going to bore you any longer because you've been here a long time standing and there's other people who wish to speak. But I'll tell you something now. I've got some of my comrades and colleagues here today and we are fighting to save the services. It's all about money. But what I said about Lech Walesa and Gandhi and the Berlin Wall, and there are many other examples, the smallest campaign starts with the smallest step, but we're growing and we're growing and we're growing and we're growing. You're powerful. You are powerful. Go back, tell your friends, tell your family, get involved, and by this time next year, hopefully we'll have a reversal in what they want to achieve, because we don't want it and we're not going to accept it. We didn't never accept it, and that's the way forward. Fight for the NHS, don't support it. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Our penultimate speaker is a speaker who made one of the contributors to the document that we produced to counter the whole proposals. She and her colleagues pointed out that a hospital service is only excellent and useful to people if they can actually get there. It's Shirley Ford from the South Tyneside Transport Users Group.
So I haven't got a big fiery political speech, but this is really important because, as lots of people have said, the biggest impact of moving these vital services out of our borough to Sunderland is the fact that people will not be able to get there. So this isn't a path to excellence, as the consultation is titled, it's a path to disaster. The path was set from the beginning when the alliance was announced, that they said the direction would be that all the acute services would go to Sunderland and rehabilitation would be here in South Shields. So this immediately raised alarm bells for us in the public transport users group, because it means, as people have said, more people, when they're patients, when you're visiting family and friends, having to travel further, and that means it will cost all of us more, and it will take more time, particularly as we don't have adequate transport links. We don't have a direct metro link to Sunderland. We don't have publicly controlled, regulated bus services yet. So we weren't surprised when this consultation was launched and we found the plan was to move all three of these vital health services out of our borough altogether. So as you've heard, the consultation has been a sham. It's based on fairy tale journey times and routes, not real ones. It's just they just looked on online, and they're not even taking into account people with a range of abilities, people with prams, with kids, getting between connections. The buses from South Shields don't even go into Park Lane Interchange bus station anymore because of the charges, so you have to walk a considerable distance to even get a bus out to the Royal Hospital. So as a group, we did ask to be part of the field testing, and we asked and we asked. That was in the listening period before they started this consultation, and we wrote to the Joint Health and Scrutiny Committee to tell them that we had been excluded, and so only now are real field testing getting going, with councillors themselves having to do this. And this means the public have been consulted on wrong data, absurdly unrealistic journey times both for car trips and public transport. So the consultation should be declared invalid and run again, this time with accurate figures. And of course, there's nothing in there about assessing the cost that we will all have to pay. And as Roger said, a hospital service can only be useful if you can get there. And having an excellent service, although I think it's clear we dispute that Sunderland will be able to be an excellent service, given all of us going there, that will inevitably increase waiting times and waiting lists. But even if it was excellent, then it's no use if people can't get there. For people who won't be able to afford to get there, on increased public transport costs, increased taxi costs, particularly through the night. I mean, they're also saying that they will be able to reduce the impact of the travel. But out of a 225-page document, only 2 pages were about reducing the impact, what could be done. And it really is mostly about giving people more information. Well, we know when the Jarrow Walk-in Centre was closed, they said, oh, don't worry, we'll give people the accurate information about travelling to South Tyneside Hospital. Well, still, 2 years on, people go to Jarrow, to Palmer's Hospital, expecting there to be a walk-in centre there. So that is not going to work. And if you're a parent, as I am, with a child in the middle of the night, and you don't know not to go to South Tyneside, you turn up there, then what happens? So the only way that they're suggesting they could reduce the impact would be if we had new, improved bus routes. But buses are controlled by, they're run by private companies. And unless, they'll only run a service if it's deemed to be sufficiently profitable. And that's why we no longer have the 35 direct from South Shields to Sunderland. It wasn't making enough money. So the councils have asked Nexus, that works on our behalf, runs the metro, to work with the bus companies to, if there are any future changes to services, that they take into consideration. But that's no guarantee. So the councils have asked Nexus to look at a new subsidised service, a secured service. But the NHS said at the public consultation meeting that they don't think they're allowed to pay for that. Well, we dispute that, but if they are going to pay for it, then that costing should be in the consultation for us to see what it would mean in terms of the supposed savings, but it would increase their costs. And if they're not going to pay, then it would be our local councils paying, so all of us local taxpayers will be paying for the service. And even if such a subsidised service was brought in, it wouldn't be free to use, it would still cost us the same as any other bus service does at the moment. So finally, ambulances. Now, it has been mentioned by other speakers, and perhaps you wouldn't think of them as public transport, but they are the most important, vital public transport. And the impact of these services being moved to Sunderland will be severe. And yet, the North East Ambulance Service hasn't even given its response to these proposals that we're being consulted on. How can a consultation take place without knowing how the ambulance service would cope? So it isn't just about a flawed consultation. The plan is wrong in principle. As Public Transport Users Group, we fundamentally believe that local services should be just that, local. And services as important as children's A&E, special care baby unit, acute stroke services, they should stay here in our borough. Healthcare is a right for all, as this campaign has said from the beginning, and making it much harder to access is clearly a path to disaster.
Thanks very much, Shirley. Our final speaker, is Secretary of the Keep RNHS Public North East. He's been with us at our previous events and is with us today to speak about regional and national events. Please welcome John Whalley.
Hi. Yes, I'm from Keep RNHS Public North East. If you don't know about us, we're a group formed a number of years ago on Tyneside. We're made up of members of the public with some doctors and nurses. It's open to everyone. And we meet in the centre of Newcastle. We campaign on the following health issues. Our group believes that there should be no cuts or cash-driven closures of hospital services. We totally agree that services need to be reviewed. Obviously, there's always room for improvement in our health services, but we are against closures for financial reasons. We also support a fair pay for all NHS staff. As we know, there's been a pay freeze over many years, and wages just simply haven't kept up with the cost of living. So this is obviously a national disgrace, and it says much about how the government regards the NHS workforce. And we also campaign really hard for a fully funded and publicly owned and publicly provided NHS. Obviously, there's massively reduced funding from the government for our health services. It's hard to think in terms of millions and billions of pounds, but please be assured that the funding that we have at the moment has been slashed by the central government like never before. And we're also seeing private companies take over and run our health service bit by bit. So we need to ask ourselves, is our NHS a public service or is it there for private profit? We need to ensure that the NHS is reinstated. And I think one thing that we can all do is make sure that wherever we come from in the North East, that our MP from that area signs up to the NHS bill. There's a website, www.nhsbill now. So if wherever we are in the North East, lobby your MP to sign up for that bill. So, I'm standing here in the Market Square in South Shields, and do you want to know what I really like about the Save South Tyneside Hospital campaign? Yeah, okay. So there's many things I like, but I've picked out the top three. So the first thing, it's a fact that it's an extremely well organised campaign. The campaign has the finger on the pulse of health developments in this area. And these health developments have been very closely tracked by the campaign team. There's no doubt about that. So this campaign sticks with the facts and it sticks up for what is right. So that's the first thing I like about this specific health campaign. The second thing that stands out about this health campaign is that it's grown from the grassroots. It's completely democratic and it involves the people of South Tyneside and now also the people of Sunderland at each and every stage. It involves all the people and all the groups, and importantly, this campaign consults with health staff who work day in and day out in our hospitals and departments. There's a lot of secrecy from the CCG and the Health Authority, but there's complete openness and honesty from the South Tyneside campaign. The third thing that stands out for me about the Save South Tyneside Hospital campaign is that it links in with what is happening nationally. So I know that members of this campaign are committed to attending our Keep Our NHS public meetings in Newcastle. They're committed, along with other people in South Tyneside, to attending all the national marches. They're committed to attending the Health Campaigns Together meetings in London. So, members of this campaign contribute here in South Tyneside, but they also flag the South Tyneside flag and contribute and keep up to date with the national picture. Three things that I really like about this campaign. So finally, like all people here today, I'd like to add my sincere word of thanks to all the hard-working staff who work here at South Tyneside Hospital and all the NHS departments in this borough. We do value and we appreciate your commitment and your hard work. There is no doubt about that. And when our hospital services are not, and when they're criticised, we know completely that the underlying issue is one of underfunding and lack of resource. So, from our organisation, Keep Our NH Public North East, from all the other health campaigns in the North East, we wish the South Tyneside campaign all the very, very best. So the South Tyneside campaign will win because it's well organised, it keeps to honest facts. We will win because the campaign is truly representative of the people of South Tyneside. We will win because we're fighting for South Tyneside, but we're also part of the bigger fight across England. So we need everyone's help here today, and we'll all win together. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you all in the South Tyneside campaign team.
Thanks very much, John. How to follow that. Well, we're coming to the conclusion now of our rally, and I'd just like to, on behalf of the campaign, say a big thank you for all of you who've turned up here today to support this. But many of you in the audience are already involved in the campaign. So that's the nature of this campaign. As John said, it's well organised, and it's all of you that make the decisions at our monthly meetings, bi-monthly meetings. And our next meeting is on Monday night at Jarrow, Alberta Social Club at 6:30. I'd like to give you a big thanks. Will you all give yourself an applause for coming? Nearly lost my voice there. I also like to give a thanks to the Hulk here, who's stood here and come. So we give applause to the Hulk. I'm sorry, I don't know his name. Okay. Yes, so look, we are continuing, as Gemma said. There's still many things to discuss and do. And as I said, we're meeting at the Alberta on Monday to start to sum up this. And of course, it's going to be another period where we have to decide what we're going to do next. So that's going to be a very important meeting on Monday. As Gemma said, this is our hospital, this is our workplace. A victory for us is a victory for everyone in the North East. As John said, we're all working together. Keep going, and thank you all for coming, and have a safe journey home.